God dag. Hvordan har du det? Forstår du norsk? Jeg snakker ikke norsk, ser det godt. Thanks for joining me. That was a little bit of Norwegian there for you. This video is going to be called Third Wave, Second Rate Norwegian Black Metal Bands. I've been really looking forward to doing this series, and at this point it's going to be maybe a 3-parter, 4, who knows. It could keep on going on. But what it is basically I want to tell you about Norwegian black metal bands that aren't the Burzums and the Mayhems and the Dark Thrones. They aren't the Immortals and the Borknagars and the Emperors. Basically, these bands are absolutely fantastic, but they aren't as well known as the other super huge Gorgoroths and all that kind of stuff. Now, not every one of these bands is going to be super underground. You may have heard of some of these, but I think it's kind of interesting, and I have been, throughout the years, enjoying sort of revisiting stuff that kind of gets overshadowed by maybe the newer releases of the bands out of Norway who are still active, or that just kind of didn't put out anything that seemed great for its time. But over the years, given my obsession with reaching back into the past for unknown hidden gems or forgotten, even things that I've forgotten, these kinds of bands are going to be things that are of note and things that I keep reaching out or toward when I get in those moods. And I think you guys would enjoy hearing my perspective on these bands as well. So I'm going to try and keep it down to like 5, maybe 6 bands per video. And as I think of more bands to do this with, my collection is really full of tons of Norwegian black metal. Honestly, it's really one of my favorite niche sort of micro genres within the whole metal butt sphere or what have you. So that's going to be what this is. I hope you like it. We're going to be listening to In the Woods, Return to the Isle of Man. This is a reissue of their 93 demo with a couple of bonus tracks on it. Hammerheart Records put this out. Get it. It's great if you like it and you hear it. So the first band, I think not a lot of people are going to know about this one. And I don't know, they're just one of my favorite bands, I guess. Beth Zeta. You ever heard of Beth Zeta? I guess let's maybe start with their first full length. They only did 2 full lengths. And this one came out in 96. And this is actually the second release on Seasons of Mist. Really strange artwork. But they're a really difficult band to describe. I would say they're kind of like a proggy sort of metal band. And honestly, I wouldn't really necessarily say they sound all that Norwegian. A lot of these bands, I think, are going to really exemplify that Norwegian black metal sound. But this is not one of them. But I really, really like these guys. It's progressive, but it's not in a technical sort of way. It just seems really experimental, and it seems like they really just kind of pushed off the shores from black and death metal and developed some sort of just really unique voice in their personalities, I suppose. I want to say members shared with Old Man's Child had an old drummer, I want to say, if I'm not mistaken, that played in this band. So this is their 78 album. It's Roman numerals for 78. Both of these albums are fucking great. If you like one, you're definitely going to like the other. They got a little bit more notoriety toward the end of their life, I guess, with this split that they did with And Oceans. Seasons of Mist used to do this like warfare series where they would like pit one band against another and see which one wins. Fucking stupid, but I never really did wind up getting that release. I've always been kind of curious about it. No, wait, I'm actually wrong. This is And Oceans versus Bloodthorn. The second one was Beth Zeta versus shit, I don't even remember. I haven't heard it, but I really should get it. There was also a shaped CD where the CD was shaped like a Thor's hammer. Anyways, great stuff. I really, really recommend checking this out. The riffs are just super well thought out. They really don't overdo anything or do anything cliche that would really turn you off, I think, from this stuff. So definitely check these out. This is Beth Zeta's 9 Worlds and 78. Of course, with all my videos, links down below for your enjoyment. Next, I talked about this in my last video a little bit too much, but anyways, this is Orth. I was super hyped to get a copy of this, especially when I first heard about it. So this is an unreleased, hadn't been released for 20 years. It was originally recorded in 96, and it just came out on Satanic Art Media back in 2017. Now what this is Grim from Immortal. He didn't play on this album, but he toured with them, and he played on the first first couple of Borknagars. Sadly killed himself a couple of years later, but this had been something I hadn't heard of for the longest time, and I've always been a really big fan of Grim's drumming. And this also has Ares from Eternus playing bass on it. Sounds quite a bit like Hades back in their heyday, and also at times, funnily enough, I think sounds quite a bit like early Borknagar, just really riff-wise. It's kind of a hastily recorded, maybe hastily written also, sort of thing thrown together, so it's kind of more exists as a relic or kind of a timepiece of someone who has sadly passed away. But it's really interesting, and I highly recommend checking this out. Should be able to get it for $10 or less online. That's Orth, and the album is called Nocturno Inferno. Good Norwegian black metal stuff. Next, we've got Tulus. Now, I also kind of brushed across this band in my last video, but I wanted to expound upon this further. I used to own a copy of their Pure Black Energy records, which came out on Hot Records, which was Shagrath's label. But it just didn't do anything for me for some reason at the time. Wound up getting rid of it, and it's one of those albums that I just kind of always wished I hadn't gotten rid of, and now it goes for way too much fucking money. So what this is a 2 CD collection that reissues that first album, as well as their second album, Mysterion, which I think was originally released in 99. So those two albums were like 95 and 99. And I was listening to this the other day and really, really enjoying that Pure Black Energy album. This also has 3 of their demos as well as some covers. They actually cover David Bowie's Space Oddity. That's the last fucking thing I expected to hear. And Obituary's Slowly We Rot. Those 2 songs are not at all indicative of their style whatsoever. But the best comparison I could really come up with, I think, and this is kind of apt, is that this is like the Helmet of Norwegian black metal. Super bass heavy, really groove oriented, boiled down, simplistic, not really trying to be melodic, not trying to be really aggressive all that much. Just really kind of almost like a black and roll sort of really groove laden kind of thing. It's a really interesting kind of thing, especially for its time. And just even going back and hearing the demos that they did on this release, their bass is just super way up in the mix, and it's obvious that it's always been like the main focus for the members or the main guy in this band. You may know the main guy in this band went on to do a band called Cold, K-H-O-L-D, which is pretty good. Had some great albums on Moonfog back in the day. But this stuff, I kind of like it a little bit more than that Cold stuff. Next, we're getting to the nitty-gritty. Good stuff. Troll Storm over Knitting Juv. This is a 17-year-old Nagash. Recorded this demo back in 95. And this just fucking shreds. It's really only 3 songs, intro, outro. It's a quick little 12-minute EP, but fuck is it good. Had Not Found, Voices of Wonder, of course. Not easy to find this on the cheap, actually, but it is super, super good. If you're a fan at all of the early Satyricon stuff, I think this is right on par there with Dark Medieval Times. The band photo thing there. Super, super good stuff. And then he also did a full-length after that called Drep de Kristne, Death to Christ. This is a shitty reissue. The original goes for $75 to $100, and I'm not going to do that. So they totally ruined it. But this really does follow so well with this EP, this full length. It's a little bit more keyboard heavy. There's a lot of kind of cheesy synth going on. You might even say there's kind of some comparisons almost to Summoning in a way. But it still really does maintain its foothold in the Norwegian black metal style. Think early Dimmu Borgir, stuff like that is very similar. And this guy actually played in Dimmu Borgir for a couple of albums. So that's Troll, good stuff. After this album, they, I think, hired Hellhammer on drums and went kind of like a cyber sort of direction, as he did with Covenant, which is also, I don't want to get into it, but I'm not into it. Next, shit, this band needs to be reissued. This is Perished. So we've got Kark. They only did 2 full lengths. And then we've got Seed. I'm not sure what those translate to, and I'm going to have to... I'm not sure which one came before. But these are both fucking pummeling masterpieces. I would almost want to say it kind of sounds like a Norwegian Dissection, or like if Emperor and Dissection kind of had a baby or something like that. I seriously cannot underplay that comparison. This guy sounds super mighty and just Viking-esque. Tons of great shreddy riffs all over the place. Well-written songs. Nothing cheesy going on here. This stuff is super good. Not sure if this has been reissued on vinyl or not. Kind of would be surprised, I guess, if it had been, because I have seriously never heard anyone talk about this band, Perished. I want to say members went on to do that Bloodthorn band, which, I don't know, I never really got a whole lot out of, but style-wise, you could definitely compare them to Bloodthorn, if that is something that you're familiar with at all. But yeah, super mighty, just Viking-esque, memorable stuff. Very, very catchy and melodic, especially for the Norwegian scene. I think this kind of sounds, kind of melds that style between Norwegian with the might, just the pummeling ferocity, with the Swedish sort of melodicism that just kind of has like that icing on the cake for you. Lastly, we've got a band I actually recently discovered within the last couple of years. I always get confused between which one is which, but these are the band's only releases. I think this is the demo. This is called Bak og Forby. And this is the demo re-released on CD by Pest Productions. And definitely really think like Dimmu Borgir's Stormblast era or For All Tid sounds quite a bit like this. Really not much packaging-wise to speak of on this one. But this is the one I prefer, the demo. Although it is shorter, it's just a 4-track little EP. And just a 3-piece band. And the drummer in this is Winterheart, who's from Germany. Plays in Flagellator and like Moonblood and a bunch of those other bands. But this stuff just, it sounds so absolutely Norwegian. There's a lot of those kind of like Ulver-esque kind of vocals going on. It's super well done. And this is the full length. I don't know if I can really say why I prefer the demo to the full length. This is a little bit more well produced. Maybe that's kind of where it is for me. But this packaging is pretty great. This comes in a glossy digipack done by Blut and Eisen. They always do a really fantastic job on their releases. Lyrics are all in Norwegian, not much to look at here, but highly recommend checking this out. This is a little bit more modern than a lot of the other bands. I think this came out in like 2006 or 7. I'm really a fuck up when it comes to years. But anyways, so that's my stack of third wave, second-rate Norwegian black metal bands that I hope you fucking like. Let me know if you have any suggestions for things that I should do in the next series, or stuff that I may not know about that I should definitely check out along these lines. Unknown, sort of less publicized, more underground Norwegian black metal bands. We'll see you next time.